So you need to look at what your goals are. What are you trying to accomplish? Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Obesity Project, episode 21. My name's Dr. Mark Shankman. I'm an oral and maxillofacial surgeon that has taken on this mission to share information, to get people understanding the causes of obesity, talk about insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes, help cure and heal people. And we'll talk about some different diets and things like that. So today, different types of carnivore diets, which one is actually right for you? So as I mentioned, I'm actually on day 4, I believe it is, of the carnivore diet. And I'm going to be disgusting. I'm going to be discussing how there are different versions of the carnivore diet, and I'll also fill you in on what I'm doing. But not all carnivore diets are actually the same, and choosing the one that fits your goals and your biology can actually make or break the experience. So let's kind of cover some of the variations of the carnivore diet. And of course, we have to start off by talking about how the carnivore diet really is one of the most strict versions of a ketogenic diet or a keto diet. And the carnivore diet is really a great elimination diet if you're having problems where you can slowly add back different elements of your diet. Assess which one of these foods seems to be causing you some discomfort or some dis-ease or disease, right? So there are several different versions of the carnivore diet. You kind of see a little bit behind me. There's the lion diet. There's carnivore plus dairy. There's BBBE, which is beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. The nose to tail carnivore diet, and the dirty carnivore diet. So we'll get into what all of these things actually are. So let's start off with the lion diet, or AKA the elimination carnivore diet. What is it? Well, it's basically only ruminant meat. So red meat, beef, lamb, bison, um, venison, all of these things are ruminant meats, along with only salt and water. So this is sort of, the lion diet is basically just the meats and really nothing else. The reason it's also called elimination carnivore is it is the purest form of elimination diet where, you can start off, adjust, see how you feel on meat only, and then you can certainly add foods in. You can add seafood, you can add dairy, you can add other things, and slowly but surely, one food at a time, you can kind of assess whether that food is upsetting your stomach, your autoimmune diseases, things like that. So the lion diet is sort of the purest form of carnivore where you're really just eating beef or ruminant meats, red meats, along with salt and water. This diet is absolutely best for autoimmune conditions, severe food sensitivities, and also some gut healing. So we've got pros and cons of all of these certain variations. The pros for the lion diet is it's the cleanest elimination diet and very, very low chance of triggering inflammation. And once you clean up the inflammation, a lot of these chronic diseases go away. And then, of course, you can slowly add back and kind of see how things are affecting you as far as inflammation, as far as autoimmune diseases, gut inflammation, those sort of things. The cons to this diet is there's nutrient diversity is limited long term. And mentally, it's really tough to sustain this pure, red meat, salt, and water diet. So a little caveat on the lion diet. Michaela Peterson popularized this protocol for her autoimmune reversal. Of course, if you're familiar with Michaela, you know that she is the daughter of Jordan Peterson, the famous social media academic, professor, psychiatrist. And his entire family, including Michaela. Michaela actually introduced it to Jordan, but their entire family does the lion diet and has had unbelievable responses per their story. Um, have had unbelievable responses to autoimmune diseases, skin, weight loss, arthritis, things like that. So really, really good form, the ultimate form really of elimination diet. So the second variation is carnivore plus dairy. So what this includes is all meats, so pork and chicken and poultry, as well as cheese, heavy cream, butter. So all of the dairy products get added into the carnivore. And this is best for people who really want extra calories, want more variety in their diet, increased fat levels, or just plain love dairy like I do. And so this is best for those types of people. So the pros of this carnivore plus dairy diet um, is it's high in fat and it's good for bulking or for energy. So if you're in a fat burning mode, which all of the ketogenic diets do, and carnivore being a form of ketogenesis or ketosis, sorry, then this is a great diet for increasing energy and for fat burning. And so you need that high fat level to be able to burn fats very efficiently. And the dairy certainly adds that in. The cons of this is that some dairy, especially cheese, can cause some inflammation, bloating, and you may see some weight stalls due to casein, which is typically found in dairy products and particularly in cheese, and its insulin spiking effect. So, as we've mentioned many, many times before, insulin drives, fat gain and weight gain. And if you are eating things like casein that spike the insulin, then you're going to certainly see, some stalls in the weight loss efforts. There was a study that sort of demonstrated that dairy proteins raise insulin even without carbohydrates, and this was in the Diabetes Care Journal of in 2004. So that's carnivore plus dairy. There's another version called BBBE, or beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. Pretty much what it includes is what's written in the name. It's a simplified version of carnivore. It was popularized by Dr. Ken Berry as a reset, a physiologic reset, or as a 30-day challenge. And Dr. Berry has had tremendous results with both himself and his patient population. This version of the carnivore diet is best for fat adaptation, for reducing cravings, and sort of simplifying the meal plan a little bit. Some of the pros: it's high in very healthy fats. The foods are very nutrient dense, and the addition of the butter, bacon, and eggs really makes things a little bit easier to plan, provide a little bit more variety, and yet keeping things pretty simple. The cons may be that they lack certain micronutrients and micronutrient variety long term without adding in the organ meats or supplementation, which I don't recommend. Better to get it actually naturally through organ meats. And then there's the nose to tail carnivore. This is actually what I consider my version of carnivore. What it includes is basically it emphasizes eating all the parts of the animal: muscle meat, organs, marrow, connective tissue. So you're basically, just like the name implies, you're eating from the nose to the tail of the animal. There's no waste. You're utilizing every part of the animal. And this is really the way our ancestors ate. They never wasted anything. So you take the marrow and the bones and the connective tissue, and you can make a bone broth out of it. This is what our ancestors did many, many years ago. So not to waste any portion of the animal, and it's not only respecting the environment. It's respecting the animal that gave its life for you to be able to, eat healthy and feel physically fit. It's certainly best for nutrient repletion and long-term sustainability. So this is probably the easiest carnivore diet to be on long-term and not get burned out and not develop sort of a meat aversion. So you've got a lot of variety. Um, the pros of this diet, it covers certainly the micronutrient bases, includes things like vitamin A, K2, copper, other micronutrients that may be missing from some of the other versions of the diet, or at least I wouldn't say missing necessarily, but maybe not in high enough levels where you don't need to supplement. Some of the cons, it requires planning and some culinary bravery. So you have to be a little bit brave in terms of when I started on my carnivore, journey, and the addition of bone broth is definitely something that is something new to me. It does require some culinary bravery, so to speak, and so you have to be willing to eat organ meats. You need to be willing to try bone broth. You need to learn to eat all the parts of the animal that typically you would cut away on a normal diet. There was a study in the Journal of Nutrition reviews in 2010, which demonstrated that organ meats are amongst the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. And although we typically think of organ meats as kind of disgusting in typical sort of American culture, the organ meats are the very best in terms of providing the adequate nutrition. They're nutrient dense. They have a lot of the micronutrients that the regular muscle meat may be somewhat lacking in. So definitely need to add that back. If you're really, really averse to organ meats, they actually do make supplements that they basically dehydrate and grind up the organ meat, put it into a capsule, so you're not actually eating the organ meat, but you're getting the micronutrients from it. And then finally, we've got the dirty carnivore. What does dirty carnivore mean? These are things like processed foods, hot dogs, deli meats, pork rinds, dairy, and anything mostly animal based. So it's sort of it's not a super strict carnivore diet, but it does stick to meats and it does stick to animal products. But you're adding in things that are processed, and if you stick to the sort of the more pure form of carnivore, we want to avoid all these refined processed foods. So this is called dirty carnivore because you're actually adding in some of the processed meats and things like that. So there is some element of processed foods in this, but you are sticking to the animal-based processing. This is best for transitioning from the standard American diet into a carnivore diet. It's certainly an easier entry point for beginners. You tend to see less of the sort of carnivore flu or the keto flu, as some people call it. A little bit easier transition, less GI upset, less inflammation, less histamine release. There's a lot of things that there is this adaptation period in carnivore that most people have to go through. I personally have not really experienced much of an adaptation issue, but that's because I didn't come from a standard American diet. I had been doing for a long time a very low carbohydrate, almost ketogenic diet. I wasn't doing full keto. I wasn't, making sure or monitoring that I was in ketosis, but a very, very low carb diet, which, sort of made my transition and adaptation a little bit easier. So the pros is it's easier, it's an easier entry point for beginners and it creates a little bit of a smoother transition. The cons, it often includes seed oils, which can be very, very damaging, additives, and can stall weight loss. And there is some possibility of triggering cravings. So, a tip that I would recommend is that you use carnivore really in the short term only while transitioning on into a cleaner version of carnivore. So how do you choose? How do you choose which one of these variations is going to be best for you? Um, so you need to look at what your goals are. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to solve gut or immune issues? Then, if that's the case, you really want to start with the lion diet because it's sort of the ultimate exclusionary diet or elimination diet. Or you can, stick to the BBBE version that, is a little bit more simplistic but has a little bit more variety. But do you need variety or long-term sustainability? Like, are you someone who typically will stick to the plan no matter how hard it gets? Or, as soon as it gets a little bit tougher, you're more likely to cheat, or you're more likely to have cheat meals and then cheat days and then cheat weeks until eventually you fall off the diet. If you need more variety or you need a diet that's a little bit easier to sustain long term, then you want to try the nose to tail diet. Um, and then, of course, if you're just getting started, dirty carnivore can be a stepping stone, but you certainly don't want to stay there. You want to transition into one of the other diets as soon as you feel able to. So, just some closing tips for a smooth transition into carnivore, or at least a smoother transition into carnivore. So, first, ease into the higher fat a little bit more slowly. This is one thing that I actually found myself was that um, I started really kind of piling on the fat, and it definitely created some nausea, some queasiness, not necessarily GI distress for me. It didn't change my bowel movements, didn't make me run to the bathroom, I didn't have explosive diarrhea or anything like that, that some people do talk about. But adding high fat into the mix right away can be a little bit more difficult. You want to try to stick to a 1-to-1 protein to fat ratio initially, and then up the fat as time goes on. You want to use some gentler cooking methods. I actually found that the air fryer has been a wonderful addition. It really prepares the food very nicely, creates crispiness to like chicken, and I had beef short ribs tonight. It was definitely a delicious meal out of the air fryer. The oven works great. You want to avoid maybe some of the like grilling and stuff like that where the fats drip off, but utilizing some gentler cooking methods will ease your transition as well. You definitely want to prioritize salt and let's try that again, electrolytes. Um, Salt and electrolytes are really important. In the beginning stages when you cut, especially if you're coming from a standard American diet where you're seeing a very high carbohydrate load, that carbohydrate actually stores water along with the carbohydrate. Here's an interesting little fact that many of you may not have known. I heard this just a little bit ago and was like, wow, that makes sense. Carbohydrate is called that because it stores water, which creates that hydration where the carbohydrate term comes from. So when you lose carbohydrates in your body and when you decrease the amount that you're eating in your diet, along with the carbohydrates go water, and along with the water goes the salt and electrolytes. So you definitely have to prioritize those salt and electrolytes early on to smooth and ease the adaptation phase and make moving into the carnivore diet a little bit easier. And then, to some degree, don't compare your journey to others. Adaptation varies. Some people adapt more easily, some more difficult. A lot of it has to do with kind of what you were eating prior, your metabolic disorders. Are you experiencing a lot of autoimmune diseases, mental health issues, inflammatory conditions? So, if you're sort of like me, where you don't really have a lot of inflammatory issues, my main issue is a little bit of visceral fat and insulin resistance, then my transition was a little bit easier. If I had type 2 diabetes, I was severely overweight, I had um, you know uh, chronic inflammatory issues like especially in the gut, like irritable bowel, things like that, then my adaptation phase would be much, much more difficult. So I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you learned a little something. Uh, I'd love for you to let me know what your experiences are. Have you tried carnivore? have you already started? Are you thinking about starting carnivore, or have you been on carnivore for a decade or more? And when you started carnivore, especially in the early stages, what surprised you the most? So feel free to drop a comment in the area below. I'd love to hear from you and keep the conversation going. And then, of course, follow for more real, unfiltered takes on carnivore and on metabolic health. Um, so this is actually all I wanted to do on carnivore for a short period of time till I have a little bit more experience under my belt and I can talk about it a little bit more. I'm going to actually transition or phase into intermittent fasting, some of the types of intermittent fasting. So the next 3 or 4 videos that I do over the next few days, we're going to focus on intermittent fasting. So if you have interest in intermittent fasting, and one other thing that's really interesting about intermittent fasting is it's a great addition and works really well with ketogenic diets and especially with carnivore, because carnivore is so satiating. It makes it easier to actually push back meals and eat, even go from 3 meals a day down to 2 meals a day or even 1 meal a day, which then, of course, gives you longer periods of fasting. So it's a really nice combination, it's one of those things that works better together than individually. So it has a synergistic effect. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Like, share, and comment, subscribe, follow, do all the things on all the social media platforms, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.